Hi, everybody. I wanted to take the opportunity to talk a little bit more about resumes for your assignment. The purpose of this video and slide deck is to supplement the article and video that you have and to help you write a strong draft of a resume. My background, I've been a career counselor both at Stanford and San Jose State, and I've looked at tons of resumes and gotten lots of feedback from employers. And that's what I'm kind of bringing in this slide deck here. So the first thing that you really want to know is your resume is your first impression. It should be a final draft. Some of the biggest mistakes I see with people when they apply to jobs is not proofreading. Maybe you're rushing, not tailoring the resume to a specific job. And finally, the formatting often has issues. So giving yourself time, like through this assignment, is key. Your resume not only opens doors to jobs, but it can open doors to scholarships as well. And you don't need years of experience to make an impact. That's really key. What you're going to do and what your resume is a summary of your qualifications for a specific job, internship, or even scholarship. So it's not your career history necessarily. It's just going to be a summary of the things that are most relevant to the goal that you're looking to do, whether it's a job, internship, or scholarship. So one of the things that I see often with students is feeling like they don't have enough to include, struggling with formatting, or not really going beyond the basic description of a job. So that's a huge one. A lot of people, what they do is they just put in the job description, like I worked in retail. I provided customer service. That doesn't really tell an employer much. It's just saying that you did the minimum pieces of the job. And what employers are really looking at is your impact and achievements. And that's what I'm going to focus on in the coming slides. So really, again, like it says here, from taking tasks to impact. So you'll see a lot of times people will just put like helped customers at a store. That's helpful, but it doesn't give me context. This is an okay example, but what I would be looking for is after each bullet point using action verbs. So provided fast-paced customer service to 100 plus shoppers weekly, improving checkout times and satisfaction. So you'll see things like quantifying information. So that could be things like taught groups of up to 12 5-year-olds, or managed a social media account with up to 700 followers, or provided feedback and data analysis to a company which resulted in 15% improvement on profit. But the more you can give with simple things like action verbs and numbers, the better. That's what makes your resume stand out. And we'll look at where you can find some action verbs and even talk a little bit more about achievement statements and how you kind of craft them. The other thing is the other area that a lot of students or people struggle with in general is like what counts as experience. And the great news is anything does. It doesn't have to be a formal job, although those are obviously great, but it could be volunteer or community service, clubs, sports, student leadership, even helping out at home or a family business. And really, like it says at the bottom, if you learn from it, it counts. The main way is how you phrase it, and showing it as an asset to an employer. Um, Obviously, the best experience over time and when you become a professional is going to be your work experience. But for students, the idea is you're probably focusing on school first, and then your other responsibilities like being at home. Maybe you have siblings to take care of. Maybe you're working part-time. Those are great too. But also another key one is school projects and presentations. And we'll look at some examples on the SJSU resume guide here to kind of show you what that looks like. The other thing is formatting. I've seen where people have great content, but maybe they have colored paper, they have a picture of themselves, which are definite not things that you need. They use a catchy font, all things that they think they're doing in order to create attention um, and stand out. Unfortunately, what typically tends to happen is you stand out in a negative way. So I've seen it before where it's like um, the person stands out because they have used pink paper or they have this really snazzy design that they've created. Unless you're in a creative field, that's really not necessary. One of the biggest reasons why is because your resume will most likely be scanned through some kind of software. And oftentimes those ads might even get thrown off. They might not translate. And it ends up kind of getting you out of the running. So keeping it kind of vanilla, 10 to 12 font, the standard Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman. You want to do consistent formatting with bolding, spacing, and alignment. Well, again, we'll look at some examples here. And then upload it as a PDF is really key. That way you're locking your layout and things aren't getting mistranslated. There's a lot of free tools that you can use. I would say if you're going to use any kind of template, make sure that you can customize it enough that you can do it in the way that works best for you. Again, this is an assignment that I'm allowing AI to be used. Here's a prompt that you could consider using. The biggest two things would be remembering to review and revise so that A, it's in your voice so that you don't show up to the interview and they're like, who is this person? And B, that it's truthful. Those are absolute no-nos and can get you out of a job running really quick, but also kind of people will remember stuff like that. Um, so this prompt is in the assignment, and I would just encourage you if you're curious about um, using something like ChatGPT to try this out and see how it works for you. And if you have questions, let me know. Um, and then final thought is don't worry about being perfect right now. Think of this as a draft that you'll get some feedback on. You're building a tool and you're going to be updating as you go. I'm going to go ahead and stop here for a second and look at some of the guides that are in the assignment. So one of them is this resume examples by major. There's a direct link to this in the assignment. What I like about this is whether you're a first year, undeclared, second year, a veteran, or looking at like specific fields, there are all different kinds of resumes here to kind of meet your needs. I'm gonna just pick one at random. Let's see. Let's do this communications one. So what you'll see here is an example resume where they have a few things here in the formatting that I want to point out. Right at the bat, you may notice that they use bolding strategically. So for their name, you may or may not want to include an objective. That's kind of a not needed anymore. But you'll see they use bolding strategically to draw you to their education, relevant coursework, skills, experience, job titles, and activities. And this is set to a page. So right off the bat, you're kind of training the reader's eyes to go to certain places. The second thing that you'll notice is there are some things on here that you might not have on your resume yet. So in this case, they have the degrees. If you're working towards one, which most of you are, you can say expected and give an expected date so that you have the listing here. What I really like here is the relevant coursework. And instead of listing like COM 1, it should be public speaking, for example. But this is a great way to show how your experience as a student ties to a specific position here. You'll also see here what they've done is they've listed some of their experience, like being a peer advisor. In here, you'll see things like quantifying information, and they're using action verbs right off the bullet point. And they're talking about things that would be helpful towards this type of work. Um, Another thing that I like about this resume is that it's got a pretty standard 1-inch margins that's not pushed out. It's not too long. The font is just right that I can read it. They've listed their experience, or I'm sorry, their headers in terms of relevance to the job. So they they've listed their education first, then skills, then experience. When you're working with templates, you might see it want to list your education lower down, and that would be more relevant for somebody who's a professional, been working in their field. But if you're a student and that's one of your best selling points, you want that to be at the top. Again, writing the resume as if the person reading it is most likely trying to get rid of it. So you have to kind of almost knock them over the head with the most relevant details first to keep their attention. So you'll see things here like they're a member of the Public Relations Student Association. They did they have like their retail experience here, a service learning project, and other pieces here that they've worked to show specifically how these experiences relate to this job here. Another thing I like about this guide is in the other link, they give you a kind of a template to follow and even listing in things like class projects. This is something that when I worked at San Jose State, employers would tell me we love to see class projects on a student resume because it gives more context for how their education has built skill sets and their relevance to my job. You'll see other things like second language, and really here in the skills area, these are what we'll call hard skills or skills that I could observe you really quickly and determine if you have skills in like Excel or Slack or if you're bilingual. Listing other things like fast learner, um, things that are really vague like that really aren't super helpful because they're really subjective. But the other pieces I like about this resume guide is they've have some really interesting stuff in here to help you get going. So one is an area on accomplishment statements. And so you'll see here that they guide you through a process to help you take something like marketing an event to 300 club members to something more relevant to an employer, getting to his final statement of something like leveraged Facebook and Instagram to market events, boosting registration by 20% among 300 members. So there's a little guide here. The cool thing about resume also is you're not plagiarizing if you see something in any of these documents that is actually relevant to what you've done. You can take that language and use it for your own, or take some of it and use it for your own. What I would say is the ultimate thing is you want to make sure that you're not overstating what you've done. And then finally down here, there's a section on action verbs. What my recommendation would be is actually if you're applying for a job, look at the job listing, and actually they will have the bullet points of the job description as well as action verbs. Actually use theirs. It's not plagiarizing. In fact, you will stand out by showing that you've read their description and modified your content to meet their goals. Essentially, you're making it easier for the reader to understand how you're a match with their job. And then finally, what I'd say is if you have 60% or more of a job description, you're probably a decent candidate as long as you're hitting the main minimum qualifications. And so I would just say try to have fun with this assignment. I'm here to support and help. All of these things, the prompt for ChatGPT, as well as the guides, are in the resume guide. And I hope you have a little bit of fun with it, whether you're starting for the first time or enhancing your resume. That's it. I hope this helps. Take care.